Welcome to the Sideline Live podcast. Subscribe for more episodes and follow our social media at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. On episode 21, I'm delighted to be joined by Galway Senior Ladies footballer Mairead Seoighe. We had a brilliant chat about her career, her time in Australia, free taking, and meeting Owen Wilson and Jennifer Aniston while filming Marley and Me. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hi Mairead, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hi Orla, thank you very much for having me. It's super. It's always nice to get the opportunity to have a chat with somebody, especially during these times.
Absolutely. Can you give a little bit of background to the listeners about who you are and what you do?
I sure can. My name is Mairead Seoighe and I come from a place called Clough in County Galway. I'm 28 years old and I'm a primary school teacher by profession. And also, some of you might know I play football then with my local club Clonbur and with the Galway Ladies. I suppose just a bit into my background, I've always been kind of health and fitness enthusiast all the way growing up, and everything I kind of have done to date, even courses outside of teaching and that, have always been driven towards that. So I suppose I've kind of put that into my Instagram account now, and I'm trying to share the love, I suppose, with everybody else. But yeah, that's kind of me in a quick nutshell.
Good. So we're going to get into all of that. But I was spotted on Twitter. It was something about, was Jennifer Aniston and Owen Wilson down in Connemara at some stage? What was that about?
Yeah. Okay. So that's actually a very good story. Yeah. So when in 2007, whatever year Marley and Me was made. My uncle runs Joyce Country Sheepdogs, so he has really well-renowned sheepdogs that people always like to buy for farming and things like that. And usually people from the Ashford tour guides will come to his house for stops. And that day I was actually going back to babysit his daughter, who was 10 years old, or 10 days old at the time. And he said, oh, we just have a bit of film crew. And usually it'd be about, like TG Carr would come and do a bit on the sheep and the land. And when we got back there that day, myself and my cousin and my sister, they said, he rang from over near my granny's and he said, you better come over here for the day with me because Jennifer Aniston and Owen Wilson are actually here. And we were like, what? And we were like, okay. And then poor Marianne, the mom, had to just mind Keelan, my little cousin. And we went over to him and we ended up having to stand in a gap behind the sheep, let's say, to keep them in the field so that they were on screen. So we spent the day with Jennifer Aniston and Owen Wilson shooting for Marley and Me. So the part when they come home to Ireland on their honeymoon and they get out of the car and they're stuck in a sheep traffic jam and they shoo the sheep away. It's about 3-second clip that took from, I'd say, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. to film. But yeah, anyways, next thing we know, Owen Wilson ends up in my cousin's house, holding my little cousin, has a picture with him holding her at 10 days old. So yeah, that's a great story. Well done for finding it.
What were they like? Were they nice?
Really, really nice.
Yeah,
they were so nice. Yeah, Owen Wilson wanted my uncle to try and ship a puppy to Malibu. Yeah.
That's good. And
they were lovely.
Yeah, and it's interesting you were saying the filming took a while, even for that 3 seconds. That's mad.
Yeah, well, I suppose you see, any of the girls with football would know how long it takes to shoot, even things for the little lads and whatnot, and then it could be just a glimpse so it just kind of put it all into perspective for us. Yeah.
Is your name now at the bottom of Marley and Me somewhere in the cast list?
I don't think so. I didn't reap any paid benefits, but I got a few pictures, so that's all I needed.
That's good. So we're going to jump into the football. I've been following Instagram. You did a takeover on the page as well, which is brilliant. But I'm interested to hear about your underage career because you had probably a different path to the other people I would have spoken to.
Absolutely. So I suppose underage, the different path that I would have taken is I've always played football for my club as long as I can remember. So as soon as you're 6 or whatever the age was to go over to the pitch, we were over kicking ball. And I played underage football just with my club. I never played county because I danced. I did Irish dancing to a very high level, kind of to world level with a team in team groups. So always there was a lot going on, and we live out in the country, so mom couldn't be bringing me here, there and everywhere while she was already on the road so much. So yeah, I always had a love for football, but I suppose I just never went to the trials or anything like that at underage. I think I might have went once ever to a trial in Annadown at under 12, and I went to one of them, and then I never went back because I think there was a fesh on at the weekend of the next one, so I went to that instead. Yeah. And then, but I played with the boys and the girls growing up, because back then we were able to play with the boys up to under 14. We won a Féile, things like that with the lads team. And even in school, we used to be on the boys and the girls team. And then I suppose when I went to college, I went playing with NUI Galway and then with Mairead after that. And during that time, our club got to the All-Ireland Intermediate Final in 2014. And I suppose really my whole focus was in on football that year, and the dancing had stopped by then. And I suppose I had always said I'd love to play for Galway, but kind of never put a plan in place to kind of get myself there. Okay. And then whatever sprung on me that year, I was like, if the opportunity arises, that trials come up or they open up the panel again in the new year, that I would go for it. And lo and behold, that happened. There was a Facebook post calling all girls to trials in early 2015, and then I went to those trials and kind of haven't looked back since. But I suppose it has taken a good bit of work and commitment and determination, to kind of try and get myself as an established player in the panel. And even still, I would never ever be complacent about it because of the talent we have in Galway. But it's something I suppose I just kind of put the head down and went wholeheartedly for it, and here I am.
Yeah, I'm interested here as well. You were saying playing with the boys. Do you think they were, because at my age, I think it was under 12 was the limit, because I would have played with the lads as well growing up. There was a couple of us. Do you think that really benefited you kind of growing up and getting the skills?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, as well, you'd be playing with the lads at break time in school, playing soccer and things like that. But definitely, I think just to have that kind of extra bit of grit, and you're kind of fearless, I suppose, in a tackle and that. And I suppose it does probably stem from having to rough it a little bit when it came to playing at underage level. You weren't afraid then to go into a tackle when you started playing with senior girls and things like that. Even in the club level, when you made that transition from underage into the senior girls team. But definitely I would have seen it as benefit.
Yeah. Was there loads of instances where they're like, oh, I'm not marking the girl, or you mark the girl, all that usual stuff they do?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then, to be fair, there's a few times, I might have got shoved aside once or twice. I was quite light as a kid, and the boys would stick up for you, and you'd feel great about yourself.
Good. So I'm interested here. You mentioned there about kind of getting your place in the panel. You'd mentioned before on another podcast about that. Can you talk to the listeners, kind of making the team from the trials and kind of your journey then to really making the squad? Because it is quite tough, and when you're coming into an inter-county panel, you really do have to perform at training, to get that spot. And I'm sure that's a very high pressure environment sometimes.
Yeah, I suppose going into it, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into or involved in, but I said, whatever was thrown at me, I'd give it a go. And it started out, you were showing up at training and doing your best. And obviously, I suppose in the first year, I probably wouldn't have expected anything, and I would have been sitting on the bench a good bit. And then towards the end of that first year, I was coming on as a sub, halfway through a game, even later, it could be just a few minutes left to play. And I actually ended up with a good bit of game time in the first year. And then in my second year with Galway, I ended up kind of as the super sub. I'd come on and kind of see out a game. And I suppose I kind of was thinking to myself, Jeannie, is this, my destiny with Galway? Is it, is this what I'm going to be ending up as? And, there were times when you'd be hopeful at game night or, team call out meetings, and you'd be saying, Jeannie, I hope I'm out tonight. I hope I'm out at the weekend. And, the name wouldn't get called. And it was disappointing and deflating, but I suppose I always tried to hold myself in the best way that I could and try and provide for the team in every way that I could, despite not being a starter or not even being guaranteed game time. And just to be around the girls and provide that kind of good energy for them and boost them up, and just understand that you have a role to play regardless of whether it's 1 or 30, and obviously it's easier said than done, but, come game day, you need to be there to put in the hard tackles and the warm up and things like that. And that's as important to get the girls ready to go. So I kind of bided my time and just kept sticking with it and got stronger. I did every single thing that was asked of me in terms of gym and nutrition and whatnot. And, really then in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, I've really reaped the benefits of that. Pretty much was consistent with getting good game time under the belt over the last couple of years, and having a dominant role, I suppose, in the games. And it's just as a result of sheer grit and determination, I suppose.
Yeah, it probably does take that bit of time for the S&C, the nutrition, to everything to kind of come together to see that, because I'd say you probably saw a bit of a jump from probably originally coming into the panel to the last 2 years. There's probably a big jump there in a lot of your play and your ability.
Absolutely. And even when it comes down to like strength in a tackle or strength under a ball in the air and things like that, that doesn't come overnight, and you can be as tough as you want, but at the end of the day, you're competing against girls who have years of gym experience, years of on-field senior, inter-county experience. And, that doesn't come just by luck. You have to be able to, you could have innate talent, but you need to be able to put the work in and let the years kind of get under the belt before you can kind of reap the benefits of it. Yeah. So I suppose just not giving up on that in the early stages. And even I see girls at club level coming up from underage into an intermediate or senior team, and it might take a couple of years for them to come in, but it's just about being patient, because sometimes you see a lot of drop off in that time when they're kind of biding their time to get break onto the team. But everyone's time will come if they're willing to put the work in.
Yeah, exactly. What advice would you give those girls that are pushing through? Because I know Galway would have a really strong underage team starting to really filter into the senior team.
Definitely my advice would be to be patient and stick with the process and trust it. It's there for a reason, and it might not come off the first or second time, but if you keep doing the things the right way, eventually they'll have a compound effect, and next thing you know, it'll be hard to take you off track.
Okay. And do you ever feel like you were at a disadvantage not playing underage inter-county, or do you think that was sort of that didn't really matter?
No, I don't think so. Like, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't have been known too well or anything like that, but I don't think so. I think it was pretty fair in terms of every year the panel was opened and that sort of way. But and I was lucky, I kind of just came onto the scene when the gym started to first come about, or real emphasis on that side of things. So I didn't miss too many years in terms of that. But I know now that even at underage level, there is a focus on, S&C and just getting injury prevention and all of that under the belt. So I think girls coming in at an older age now might see that bit of a disadvantage, but at the end of the day, I think put in the hard yards and, you'll reap the benefits.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to talk a little bit about the 2019 season. I'm interested to hear about that semi-final. Was that the first time you played in Croke Park?
So the semi-final, first ever. Well, obviously, underage in primary school played at Cumann Munskull halftime between Cork and Kerry. But other than that, it was my first time on the field.
How did you find it going in to play in Croke Park? Obviously, you dream as a kid that you just want to go out, represent your county there.
Yeah, to be honest, that week I was so excited all week. Like, I was putting on my socks and deciding what socks I'll wear in Croke Park. And I was literally putting on my full kit. I know it sounds ridiculous at 26 or 27. That's what I was doing that week. And I was looking in the mirror and like imagining, in being in Croke Park. But I was really excited to get out and play in it. And, the day was just electric. Yeah, it was class.
Yeah, that's good, because you had a good win over Mayo that day to go into the final. And I'm interested to hear about that build up, because there would have been a couple of weeks there in between. Were you putting on the jersey there for about 3 weeks leading up to it?
No, well, the week of the semi I was, but then after that I didn't go into the dress up phase. No. I was able to visualize it, you see, after having played in there once, whereas prior to that there was I had to kind of make it my own.
Yeah. And is visualization something you really do then for a game? Like, would you probably the week before leading up start doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't place a lot of emphasis on it, but I definitely think it has its place as, a bit of a percentage that can give you that marginal gain, coming into a game, or even the couple of nights leading up to it. I'd like to try and recap on, clips on huddle that I might have of playing at my best, and then also being able to visualize, well, what's the worst possible situation and what could I do if this happened. you need to kind of cover all angles, because if you just visualize the best, then you don't know maybe what to do. You haven't programmed what to do in terms of a sticky situation, But yeah, it definitely will play a role.
Yeah, I like that. And what in terms of you were saying that would play a small percentage in your sort of pre-game routine. What would the rest of that be? Is there anything specific you would do?
Yeah, so my approach to a game is always to tick the boxes that you can control. So whether that's your food, sleep, skills, training, recovery, visualization, knowing your game plan, hydration. I like to write down a list and try and tick off the boxes every day. And if you know going into the match at the weekend that you've ticked every single box that you could control, then the rest of it kind of comes down to a small bit of luck, and it's kind of the uncontrollable.
Okay.
With any game, you can only control so much. I mean, certain things like the referee, the weather, interferences on the day, you can't do anything about that. But if you've done your very best to prepare, then you can go into the game knowing that, and kind of gives you that just little bit of extra confidence going in.
Yeah, dead right. I'm interested here as well about the All-Ireland final in terms of the crowd. How did you find? I think it was 55,000 that year. I can't remember the specific number.
Yeah, 56,000. I think it was 56,114 or something around that. It was, yeah, like, I mean, I remember just running out into the pitch, and it was like I don't know if you remember, the day was like a downpour, but through the like rain haze, you just see the lights of the stadium shine, and then next thing, like the roars of the crowds when you went out. And I remember we went over for a warm up, and we could not hear a single thing that our S&C was saying. It was just the actions he was making. We had to go with it. And like, I remember one line of us was doing one thing, and another line of us was nearly starting on the next, and we were just looking around to see, what do we do? We were just trying to follow hand signals. So I suppose it was definitely a shock in that sense. Like, we had always heard, the noise in Croke Park, but I suppose no one had ever experienced it. And not as a female athlete, I suppose we had never had a crowd big enough to drown out our own voices. But it was electric, and knowing that like your friends and family and community and work friends and everything were up in the stand supporting you, it was just, there was something really special about it.
Yeah, definitely. And did that play a part then when you were playing and the game was going on? So not particularly during a score, but when the crowd would kind of die down, would you still be able to hear each other, or was that difficult as well?
Yeah, I think it was always pretty noisy throughout the whole match. Even like, though it was quite tense for the first half, there was nothing really happening in terms of on the scoreboard. But at the same time, if anyone did a tackle or a turnover, next thing it would be just a big lift from either side, both the Dublin fans and the Galway fans. And yeah, definitely it's something I would say to people: if you're playing at Croke Park, get ready to be good at miming.
Yeah. So then I'm interested to hear about the 2020 season. Obviously no fans. How big of an effect did that have on you and the team? Especially, like, obviously communication was a lot easier, but how was that mentally, not to have that from the fans when you kind of needed maybe a bit of momentum?
I suppose the most time when it really hit me in any of the games this season was coming out again at half time. Usually you come back out onto the pitch for the second half, and that's like, you get that extra buzz, like, and lift, whereas you were running out and it was kind of like you'd just gone in for a break of training. So I suppose that was the one time when I really found that it was you'd miss definitely the encouragement of the sport. You'd hear mom or dad or granny in the background like roaring at you when you come back out, but there was none of that. So yeah, definitely it took away. Like, I mean, I wouldn't like it to be a thing going forward. Obviously, I'd love to be able to play again this year, but I hope that the crowds can come back at some point.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Cause I was at a game, the Monaghan Tipperary game, and I know it was the same thing. Especially, I found at the end of the game, because when you're used to, obviously the Monaghan won, so you're used to the Monaghan fans kind of screaming, but there was nobody, and it just hit me. I was like, geez, there's actually nobody here, which I know sounds stupid because there's nobody in the stadium, but it didn't hit me till then, and you could hear the managers screaming. It was just weird, really weird atmosphere.
Yeah, you could hear every single thing, even as if you came off as a sub halfway through the game. I remember coming off in the Tipperary game as well, and I was sitting up on the bench, and you could, as you said, hear every single thing people were saying on the sideline, and it's not exactly something you would be exposed to normally given the crowd.
Yeah, exactly. So 2020 season, obviously there was a bit of controversy there with the game versus Cork. Can you just give your side of the story to that? What happened that day, and kind of what kind of went through your head maybe the days after?
Um, yeah, it was definitely controversial, to say the least, but I suppose there was a lot said and done at the time. I've kind of parked it so much so that, you kind of nearly try to put it to the back of your mind because you want to move forward and move past these things. And, there's nothing
Yeah,
we can kind of do about it now. But I suppose, yeah, it was definitely, it threw us all. It was a disappointing hiccup that probably shouldn't have happened, or just something should have been done to prevent it from happening. But you know what, like we went out, we played the game, and there was a bit of commotion after, I suppose, with the words of the president, and the following morning, things that were untrue.
yeah,
But we tried to ask for an apology and from the organization, and where I suppose, you've seen, I think Tim came out there yesterday, said we're still waiting for that.
mm,
So other than that, try not to dwell on it too much, because you don't want to go back and relive that kind of raw emotion that
yeah,
came with that whole experience. You kind of want to move forward and put positive energy into things that you can,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think what was said after was probably the most disappointing part, where there wasn't maybe that support for your team and the
Yeah,
players?
absolutely. Because I think anyone can make a hiccup or make a mistake, but I think it's what you do afterwards that speaks volumes. And I suppose
Yeah,
the aftermath really wasn't what we had kind of hoped or expected. But again, we can only control ourselves, and we can't control anybody else. So, it's up to us to, hold ourselves with pride. And, we went out and we did our best under the circumstances that we had. And I just
yeah.
hope that for girls in the future, that something like that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, exactly. As you were saying, control the controllables. But we're going to move on to something more positive. I want to
Yeah.
chat to you a bit about AFLW. Talk me through how that opportunity came up, and how you got across to Australia.
Yeah, so definitely opportunity of a lifetime. It was an absolute blast. I suppose I started playing a bit of AFLW AFLW on the weekends up in Dublin with West Clare Waves. With Mike Curran, he was over us there, and he'd gotten in touch and said, "Come along." My friend Ray Coyne was playing with them, and she told me the dates or the times to go up on a Saturday. So went up and said I'd give it a rattle, and I was like, you know what, if I like it, I'll see where this might go, because I suppose I had taken an interest in it, seeing how Cora and Sarah Rowe had gone over to Australia, and I was like, oh, maybe this is something that could be for me in the future if I put my mind to it. And yeah, those weekends kind of rolled in, and we were going well and played really well and really enjoyed the game and the weekends with the girls, and we ended up winning that kind of little series out. So after that, then got in touch with Jason from Crosscoders, Jason Hill, on Instagram, and he said, "Would I like my name to be put forward?" Because he's an agent over there, so he puts the name out to all the clubs and whatnot. And
Okay.
that was fine. I did that, and gave him a few brief details, and didn't really hear anything for a while. And next thing a couple of months down the line, he starts looking for a little bit more information, and said that there was one or two clubs that might be interested. So would I
Mm.
compile a little bit of video clips or things like that? So I sent on a little bit of vision, and next thing was I had Reese from North Melbourne, the list manager, calling me one morning on my way to work, and he was basically like, well, will I have an interview with the head coach? Did that, and it went really well. And then I went through a little bit of physical testing, and it came to the
Out of
crosscoders
interest,
camp. Yes.
oh yeah, sorry to interrupt. Out of interest, what's involved in a physical? I'm always interested to hear what the professional side would look at.
To be honest, it was more just to ensure, because they had gotten all my stats from Galway. They kind of knew where I was at because I was mid-season. So I didn't
Okay.
have to retest those. I was able to send those on just with a bit of confirmation. And I had to go through a screening with the physio just to make sure that there were no underlying injuries that I might have been hiding or anything like that. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I had to do just a medical with the doctor to kind of give me the okay to that my health was in
Okay.
good nick. Yeah. So, and then I did have to do actually a 2 kilometer time trial for them. So I did that
Okay.
because I had gotten signed pre the crosscoders camp. So
Okay.
then when the cross cutters camp came in May, I got awarded my jumper at the camp. So that was lovely start to the weekend of the cross cutters
Yeah.
camp. And it was a great lift, kind of, I suppose, as well, for all the girls to know that there was an opportunity that lay ahead of them over the weekend as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was that. And
Okay.
before I knew it, I was on a plane with a few of the girls on the way to Melbourne in October.
That's deadly. And how, what was involved in the camp was and who was there? Because I was chatting to Joanne Doonan about it, and she was saying there was girls from other countries there or something. Was that the case with your one?
I was at the same camp as Joanne. Yeah, yeah, it's the
Oh
exact same
right.
one.
Okay.
Yeah, it was held in
Yeah.
Athlone because, and all of the Irish girls went, and then there was one or two from England, and then there was a girl from Germany, and yeah, there was a huge interest in it, and it was just essentially we went through the skills and drills. If you can imagine a football camp for beginners, let's say, of the
Yeah.
sport, it'd be something like that. Along with they did the 2 kilometer test, they did a bit of strength testing, things like that as well.
Okay. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting. And out of interest, for like I would see GEA, probably rugby, maybe soccer, basketball as the kind of the biggest pathway to AFL. What are the other sports that the girls play that play AFLW?
There are some girls who come from athletics background who are really,
Okay.
really good sprinters, and their speed would
Yeah.
really benefit them in the game. Then you have basketball. I'm not sure if you said that. There's a lot of basketball crossover, and also you see a lot of netballers, previous netballers, which we wouldn't have too much of here,
Okay.
but in Australia
Yeah.
you would. They're
Yeah.
the usually the rucks, the really tall in the centre of the field over there. Yeah, because as a netballer,
Okay.
they'd have that natural kind of stature, and usually the netballers come from an elite background as well.
Okay, right, that's interesting. And when you got to Australia then and you were training and with those matches you played in Dublin, how did you find the physicality? Because obviously with ladies football you're not allowed to rugby tackle basically someone to the ground.
Yeah, you definitely knew you were taking a hit or two when you got into it. Now I missed a good bit of the contact training because when I got over there in the second week of preseason, I broke and dislocated my baby finger on my left hand.
Oh God.
So yeah, I was a bit unfortunate in that way. So I was out to because you aren't cleared to play until you're literally perfect. I seen more hand therapists,
Okay.
and the medical over there is top class. Like I had more scans on my hands than I've had in my whole body in my life. And I was going for hand therapy a couple of times as well, and it was just mad. Like the
Okay.
care, they rule out any possibility of anything being hidden. They'll give you an X-ray
Wow.
scan, everything done overnight. So I missed contact
Yeah.
training for I think it was nearly 8 weeks before I was cleared to play again in contact,
Right.
just because with the finger it could easily happen again and whatnot. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, the physicality of it, if you don't get rid of that ball quickly, you're going to the ground or you're taking a big hit. But yeah,
Definitely.
no, it was cool though. It's very cool because it's something different. And sometimes in a
Yeah.
football match, you'd only love to take someone down, but you don't get the opportunity. So I suppose kind of having that balance.
Yeah, definitely. And how did you find catching the ball? Like, oh God, I can't remember the name of it. The
The
Sharon or something,
Sharon,
is it?
yeah, yeah, the
Yeah.
Sharon. Well, clearly not too good when I did that to my finger, but it was actually something then that I had to really work on as
Okay.
an individual, because when I came back from that injury, I suppose I had a subconscious kind of hold
Yeah.
back from it. So
Mm.
I had to do a lot of individual touch with the coaches, but that's a good thing about over there. They'll let you know what exactly you need to work on, and they'll put in the time. You have more
Okay.
coaches and players nearly, so it's phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
you have that opportunity. But yeah, I mean, I was perfect again by the end of it, but it's something that you can't do enough of. And I would recommend to anyone who's any interest in going
Yeah.
over at any point in their life, just get your hands on a ball straight away as soon as you can. You don't need to know that you're going, just start practicing, holding it, getting the
Yeah.
feel of it, grabbing it from the air,
Mm.
kicking it.
Definitely. Yeah, that's definitely going to help. And how did you find kicking? Was there much? Did you have to change your kicking style much with that ball, or was it kind of you're okay with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a totally different technique, the way you kick it,
Okay.
even the way it's been, they want you to have it traveling through the air, it's very precise.
Yeah.
Obviously there are one or two times where you'll just throw a lash on it or whatever, but the drop of the ball is pretty important for its flight.
Okay.
So that where you connect with the ball is at the bottom of it, and you want it to spin kind of backwards even though it's going forwards. And then you want it to drop almost straight down. So you know, a lot of people here be used to kicking maybe a rugby ball and you'd nearly toss it on its side and then kick it. And whereas this, you need to drop it up and down. So it's something you need to peel back and learn again from the start.
Yeah, and was that, you went into really great detail there where you were explaining the kicking, and you mentioned the individual training. Is that something that they really would like nearly like break down to like a science of the different like ways to kick and catch and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, myself and Aileen got over there a couple of weeks before preseason, and Reese took us down to the club every single day, just kicking, just the two of us, you know, and spent so much time. And then he had gotten one or two of the others. Nathan used to help us out as well with him. So I mean, we had any amount of time put into us, which was super.
Yeah, definitely.
We needed it too.
Yeah. Do you think that professional approach and the professional resources that you have, is that nearly the, like, not the biggest pull obviously, but is that a real attraction for GAA players that are used to the amateur game that want to give it a go at the professional level?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's every elite athlete's dream to play professional, or have an opportunity at a taste of that kind of life. And I suppose you're given that, you're put into a professional environment. You've shared resources with the men. I know our club was very much a one club type of community over there, which a lot of them are. So there's no differentiation between this is the girls' area, this is the boys' bar, the locker rooms.
Okay.
So you've access to every single thing that they've access to: the gym facilities, the recovery facilities, the ice baths, physios,
Wow.
you know, trainers. It's phenomenal. Even the amount of kind of stats that go with every game and training is recorded from a drone and every different angle.
Wow.
You know, you want for nothing in terms of that side of things. So it's definitely, I think it's definitely a pull for most people, and if it's not, I think you're crazy.
yeah, that's mad. Even a drone at training. So would you sit down, would they use analysis much for training sessions, or is more just matches and they would just keep the training videos?
Oh no, it's for the whole time. You would use it for everything. So they would have, you know, they've someone there specifically for that reason, just to do the tech side of training. Wow. And they'd record our meetings. Everything is recorded. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And do they like use Huddle or something so you can see your clips and your touches?
Yeah, do you know, that was actually great. It was great coming from here. We had used obviously Huddle with Galway, and they use it over there too. So they were actually shocked to hear that we had that level of eliteness over here, that we were actually working at that level, given that we weren't a professional setup. They were like, wow, I didn't know. They didn't like realize how much we use video over here now. So it was great to be already, I suppose, adapted into using that.
Yeah, okay. And what did the girls think? Because I'm always like, I remember I had Mickey Burke on and he was saying, he was chatting to some rugby players and they were saying, how much do you get paid? And he was like, I don't get paid. And they thought he was mad. Was there that sort of reaction from the girls who maybe are used to that professional life?
Yeah, like a lot of the girls, in fairness, because the sport is still in its infancy over there, even at professional level, a lot of them still work. Now, it might only be part-time. You know, a lot of them might work a couple of days a week, or they might work a couple of hours every day of the week, you know, that sort of way.
Right. Yeah.
Because unless you're a tier one with a lot of perks, you still probably wouldn't live off it. And I suppose the uncertainty surrounding everything with COVID and whatnot led to, you know, them not knowing what the season would be like this year, how it'd be structured and whatnot. But the girls over there couldn't believe that, you know, we get nothing for playing over here and putting in the same amount of time and effort, you know.
Yeah. And I'm interested to hear how long, like, obviously the sport is only really new in terms of the women's side. Do you think, like, how long will it take for nearly all the players to have it as a professional and just focus on that rather than working those couple of hours a week?
To be honest, I don't really know, or I couldn't predict. I mean, if things stayed going the way they were going, the growth was like it had tripled already in its second and third year, you know, at the rate. So I mean, if it kept going like that, it really wouldn't take that long. I'd say maybe another 10 years and you could be looking at them making good money and not having to maybe work year round or whatever, being able to, you know, maybe only work the months that they're not playing professionally.
Yeah. I was watching. It's great that TG Carr have the games on, because I was watching a few of them.
Phenomenal.
But the one thing that I don't like is how stop-starty it is. I love in Gaelic, you just go. How did you find that? kind of going from GA, we can just run hell for leather to all the stopping and the starting?
Yeah, I suppose that did take quite a while to adapt to, but it was
Yeah,
great to kind of have Aileen there to kind of bounce that off, or we come home to Ashmack and Joanne as well, and we'd be
yeah,
able to have it out about that, being like, Jeannie, you'd love to just stay going or keep moving on, but it's just the way the game is, and until you're immersed in it for a while, then you start to understand, and you just kind of adapt. And it's like
yeah,
anything, if what your surroundings kind of control, your actions and
yeah.
habits and your behaviors. So I suppose once you're around something long enough, it kind of becomes like second nature to you.
Yeah. And how did you find living with the girls? It was obviously a big help then, with the 4 years together.
Oh, stop. We had like the best, it couldn't have been better, honest to God. For, four grown women to move into a house together, the other side of the world, playing with different teams, we just all clicked so well from the get-go. It was like living with best friends that you've had your whole life, and that was the girls. Like, and even still, we're so close, all of us, which is super. And given it was only such a short period of time, everything
Yeah.
into perspective, we've definitely made friends for life out of it. And even not just having the girls in the house, we had little Irish kind of core group that we'd all, meet up for brunches with the girls like Sarah and Ashling, and the Dublin girls, and Katie Hearn, and Clara, all the girls that were in
Yeah.
Melbourne together. And then even anytime you go to a different part, I know Grace Kelly and Neve and Orla and them came from their parts for the induction weekend, because that was on in Melbourne, and we all met up and had a
Oh, that's
coffee
lovely.
together. So yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
really nice just to have that little bit of home from home.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna be weird though when you're coming up against each other now, next couple of months and last year.
Yeah, it was definitely, but you know what, it was nice because you always had someone you could go over chatting to after the game.
Yeah,
Everything aside, the game is just a game, and
yeah,
your friendship will last outside of that.
that's it. So talk to me about COVID then, because I think were we ahead of your lockdown in Australia,
Yeah,
was it?
well, things had started happening over there, like toilet roll ran out and the rice and the flour, and we were telling home, and they're like, what, that's mad. And then next thing was you were going into lockdown and the schools were closing and everything, and we were like, whoa. And then a week later we got told that the Irish government were recommending that we get home.
Okay.
So then we kind of had to have a conversation with the club, because things hadn't started to, get very serious over there. And the
Yeah.
weekend, I remember we booked our flights on the, no, we got told, yeah, booked the flights the Thursday, had a
Yeah.
speaking with the club that early that day, and then booked our flights that evening, and we were flying on Saturday morning. Literally everything moved.
Okay.
I had to get rid of everything in the house, Oh, it was just so manic, and it was nearly just such a whirlwind. And then Aileen and a couple of others stayed over because they had finals weekend that weekend.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't playing, so there was no reason for me to stay when the girls were all flying home. And same with a couple of the others who their games were over. But they were like, oh, Aileen, stayed and she played that weekend. And then next thing was she had to fly home the next morning. They didn't think that it would come to that. They thought it would
Right.
stay going. But the whole
Yeah.
competition just got cancelled. And that was that, even though we had progressed as a team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was
Because I
mad. And
know
then
there
we
was
came
a
home.
yeah. Because I was going to say, I know there was at some stage there was people stuck there. I don't know. I don't think it was AFLW players, but there's people stuck in Australia because there was no flights.
Yeah, because even the flight that Aileen got home, she met a group of Irish, I don't know, was it lads or girls or whoever it was, but they had tried to get on flights, and they tried to get on, I think, 4 different flights, and they all got cancelled, and every flight they were
Oh my
booking was
god.
costing thousands and thousands. So the prices skyrocketed, and next thing it was impossible like to get home. But thank God we literally got
God.
out, I'd say just within 4 days of not being able to get home.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank God you've got back. And what was that like being on a plane with in the like about to be a pandemic? Like that probably was a bit weird.
We didn't know what to expect. Like, we didn't even have a mask. We couldn't get masks. We didn't have a mask in the airport. We
Oh
didn't, like,
God.
we got any hand sanitizer we could find. We bought it, but it was out of stock
Yeah.
everywhere. We were on the plane, we were like, what is going on? What are we coming home to? And when we came home, then the lady at the airport was like, oh, you might see things are a little bit different now because there's queues in the shop. You have to stay 2 meters apart. You have to stay in a queue to get in. They're only letting certain people in. So they're like, just be
Yeah.
mindful of it. But that was kind of all. They never said to us to do anything. But we obviously all kept our distance then for the 2 weeks. You know, when we got home, we isolated each of us in our own places. But other than, you know, it wasn't enforced or anything, which I found was mad. But because you know, when you go over to Australia now, it's you have to quarantine. But I suppose it was very different. And I came home and didn't see anyone for months, and I started meeting people when we kind of came out of that level 5, and everyone's like, oh, welcome home, you know, how are you finding being home? It must be tough, such a change. And I was saying, I've been home for months, and they're like, what? You know, even still I meet people and they're like, how is Australia? And I was like, I've been home twice as long as I was in Australia, you know. But it's gas.
It was like, because I was going to ask what was the first thing like you did when you got home, but sure, we weren't really allowed to do anything. Like,
I did nothing apart from kind of try to walk and run and stay fit and make banana bread, and that was about it. Every meal in Davy Nutrition's book, I think, Daniel Davy's book.
Very good. When you were over there, out of interest, like obviously you miss family and friends. Was there anything Irish that you missed, like maybe if the food or something?
Let me think now. There definitely was, but you're putting me on the spot. I was actually very lucky. My uncle was over there, so you know, it was a close connection with home. And we're quite close in age, so it was nice. I'm trying to think, what did I miss? I definitely, if I go out and ask Mom, she probably know.
I always find when I go to like Spain or something, you know, the milk, it always tastes like manky compared to our milk here.
Yeah, actually that's one. And as well as that, you know, I don't really use butter on toast, but when I do have it, it's not the same over there. And there's a few things like the tea. Definitely you could get ones that were quite like it, I mean, but I think the tea was definitely probably a big one.
Okay, so anyone going to Australia, bring loads of tea bags with you.
Bring the Barry's tea. I mean, Barry's or Lions, whatever you're into, I won't judge.
Mentioned there about you did all your runs and your walks. I'm sure you did loads of 5Ks. At the moment, we're obviously in lockdown again, or there's no football on. What are your individual sessions and kicking sessions like? You have them up on you have it up on Instagram that you're going down to your local pitch and you're doing your walks and stuff. What are you actually doing in those sessions?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm very, very fortunate. We have a massive shed here on our house, like huge, you know, so I have a full section out there, which is pretty much a gym now at this stage. You can probably see it on, kind of getting a picture of it on my Instagram. So in that sense, nothing much has changed bar maybe limited equipment. But I still have my own space that I go to for my gym sessions. So I'm hitting those 3 times a week. They're mostly consist of foam rolling, mobility activation, and then a full body workout, strength workout. And then my running varies. So I go to the pitch and I would do whatever session is prescribed. You know, we'd have sessions given to us from county, so you know, could be endurance mixed with sprints, mixed with whatever else. And then at the end I like to do spend a half an hour on kicking. So I practice my frees right and left, and then do a bit of like trying to, you know, simulate doing it from play, but it's kind of hard to do that at the minute, especially you're just there by yourself. But I did that all the last lockdown, so I'm just kind of trying to push on a small bit from that and ask a bit more of myself this time round. So that's basically it. And I always get out for a walk even on my rest days, because especially now I've little Rua, my little Jack Russell, so she likes to get out too, so that's a nice way to kind of, it's really my own time and I love that. So it's nice. I'm very fortunate being in the country. You know, I've optimal space to do whatever I want in terms of keeping fit, you know. People aren't so fortunate in the city.
Yeah, where I am, we're busy confined here. But I'm interested to hear, I remember you had it up on your page, I think I messaged you about, you were doing the kicking practice, and I was saying, would you take notes during your kicking, is it? Or during your sessions?
So, well, not so much during, but afterwards I would write down, you know, how much I got off the right, how much I got off the left in each position, and then just try and make it a percentage. So each time I go kick and I try to hit, you know, a high percentage, and make sure that I either keep that consistent, and if not, I need to try and fix my technique and see, you know, why would it be dropping, or what's the reason for it. And, you know, if I happen to hit one wrong, I always assess it, if that makes sense, on the spot, when I'm in practice,
I know what you're saying.
and then reset for the next one. And then I come off the field and write that down. It just literally notes in my phone. That's all. And it's only something that I started practicing really properly last lockdown, because I had listened to Kieran Donaghy from Kerry, and he said it's something that he always did and kind of got used to and fell into a habit. And even now I find you're making a mental note of it, you know, even without being like consciously writing it down. So I'd always be able to come back to it. If I came home and had forgotten to write it down, I'd be able to throw it into the notes, because I would have kept a mental note of it. Whereas before, you might go kicking to the pitch and you just do it so passively and there's no kind of real purpose, you know. Whereas if you have a goal and you have a target, you're always going to try and improve on that.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I really like that. I'm gonna rob that from you and from Kieran. And where like in terms of your frees and probably kicking, that sort of game situation, whereabouts are you practicing? Is that kind of outside the 21, or where would you kind of practice the kicks from?
Always start with 100% kick. So start in the center, start close to the goal, somewhere that you know you're going to start off with, because you know everything is very much mental as much as it is physical. So if you start off on 100%, and I would always say to finish up on 100% too. So start off on 100%, somewhere just past it, maybe the 21, center the goal, you know, right foot, left foot, whatever your dominant foot is. Then bring it out across that line, and then kind of go around the D on one foot, go around the D on the other foot, kicking from 5 points, so 2 each side, 1 at the center point, 2 each side, the other side, and then see what you get out of 5 on each side. And then finish up with a 100% kick on each foot at the end. And at the minute, there's absolutely no point in trying to kick the impossible. So, you know, where you should be practicing is where most of the frees are, and they lie within around the D and the 21. There will be time for those massive kicks, but I mean, we're not warmed up for it. We're not training for it at the minute. So there's no point, you know. Control the 100% ones that you're going to get. The rest of them, you can put time into them again when we know what the kind of time frame is for coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned it there, that because free taking it's like an individual game within a team game. How do you keep focus mentally when you, like, let's say when the whistle blows for the free, if you know you're going to take us through that sort of thought process and routine that you have?
I would always, well, when the whistle goes, you're like, depending on where you are, if you're far away from the ball, you're like, I have to get all the way up here now. But no, because I'd kick the frees at club all the time. And no, what I do is straight away, I'll say I've kicked this before. That's the first thing that I say in my head. And then I go up and I set myself up, take as much time as I need. And what I always kind of bring myself back to is, do it the way you've always done it and do not change. Just because it might be slightly different to where you might have kicked it, keep all your basic principles for kicking a sure kick the same. Don't change anything. Take the same routine that you always do. You know, that's completely individualized. I always look at the goal, picture where I want to hit behind the post, and then kind of I imagine a line between that and the ball in my head. So I feel like it's the ball will be drawn to it then when I hit it. I know it's mad, but that's the thought process. And then I would usually set myself up, and then just when I'm good and ready and I've taken my breaths, I line up for the shot. And it's, you know, it's again, like anything, like we were talking about earlier, breaking onto a team, anything, it's practice and follow the process. And if you keep with the process, you might have 1 or 2 misses, but I mean your percentage is going to be a lot higher than if you just kick random pot shots.
Definitely. No, I'm a free taker as well. I did a lot at underage, and I'm always interested in other people's routines. And I was reading the book there, Toughness by Jay Billis. It's a basketball book, but it's about life and other things. And I don't know if you know, have you heard of Steve Kerr? It was in The Last Dance. I don't know if you like.
Oh yes,
he was a really good shooter, and he was saying what he would do before games is watch clips like of things he did well, like you were saying, but when he was doing a free throw, he would which is basically the equivalent of a free kick in basketball. He would, like, there was one particular game in Houston where his technique was just 100%. He couldn't have done any better. So every time he would line up now, he would say the word Houston in his head, and he could picture himself with that technique. So it's interesting to hear, like, you did the line, he does Houston. Like, everyone has their own little sort of mental trick to it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it is important to kind of find that and become consistent with it, because whether it's the craziest thought process in the world, if it works for you, it's going to work for you because you have a positive association with it mentally. So I mean, if you can feel that energy and get that mind muscle connection going, you're gonna reap the rewards.
Absolutely. With all the training you're doing, and obviously with level 5 and the GA is technically not elite this year, how are you keeping your motivation up to keep training and keep going? Because the individual training it must be hard not to have your team with you.
Well, I suppose, you see, I'm working full time as well whilst I am working from home. So it is an escapism for me as well. And I know the way I feel after I train. And I know that there is going to come a day when we are going back on the field. And, you know, that's going to come sooner rather than later. We thought last year there'd be no football. And next thing, there we were in Croke Park on All-Ireland semi-final day. So I just rather be in the best position that I can be in than to not do anything about it now. And I always just feel better. I'm a very much a routine kind of person. So I feel better if I fulfill out those kind of routines, and I like to have things to work towards. So I kind of just reset every day and see what I want to hit. And at the start of the week, I kind of plan out my week. And I feel like if I have it planned, I have to do it. Whereas if I just kind of left it to chance, I might do it some days and then I may not do it the others, you know? So I think if you kind of put something like that in place for yourself and have your own kind of mental game towards it, it'll work.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I like that one. And what else are you doing over lockdown? Because we obviously have a little bit more time than usual. Is there anything new or any new habits you were speaking about the other day on your story? What have you sort of implemented over lockdown?
I suppose I have kind of put a bit more work into just educating myself a bit more to kind of help share it with others on my page. You know, I've had more time to kind of be more consistent with my posting. And then I have started to do live classes for people on the weekend. So on a Saturday morning, I have committed to, while we're in level 5, that I will provide for people on a Saturday morning to hopefully get them up and active on a Saturday. As well as that, I have started to be more consistent with my journaling. I mean, I've always kind of dipped in and out of it and practicing gratitude, but I probably wouldn't have been always consistent, whereas now I'm every morning, every night without fail. And I find it's really, really helped, especially, you know, just time, like, you can clear your mind before you go to bed first thing in the morning. If there's anything that's on your mind you need to remember to do for the day, just jot it down straight away, because I kind of do 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 goals I want to achieve just in my life, and 3 fitness specific goals, or, you know, performance goals. And then at the end of the day, I do a small bit of journaling and write down 3 things that were positive that had happened throughout the day, and as well 3 things I want to work on tomorrow. So I just find that keeps me really focused, and it's definitely great.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. And would you do, like, because I was talking to somebody the other day, in football wise, like, would you journal after a game? I always find if there's a game, you know, that's just annoying you, and you just have to, like, write down whatever happened and you close the book and you leave it. Would you do that at all, football specific wise, or just keep it to kind of life?
To be honest, I wouldn't do it just football specific, but there have been times that say, like, where it might have been a build up from a week of, it could be football in the mix and it would happen to come out on it that day. But I wouldn't say that I write after every game, and it's probably something I could consider doing even after training or whatever. Because definitely when you write things out, you just, it's like a subconscious, like, freeness that just comes over you. But, you know, as you know yourself, life kind of takes over and gets busy, and you're like, oh, I don't have time to do that, even though, you know, we all have the same 24 hours. It's just what we prioritize in those 24 hours.
Definitely. And you had it up on your story there the other day. I had it written down. I wanted to ask you about, I think is it called The Daily Stoic? Is that it?
The Daily Stoic,
yeah. What's that book? I'm interested to hear about that.
So every day it kind of just, it's obviously based around Stoicism, and it kind of goes through a little quote or saying, like, you've 1 page every day that you read in the year, and it's to do with adopting kind of a stoic approach to life. So let's say the other day was about not reacting, and that after, you know, maybe a situation didn't go your way and you reacted out of kind of madness or whatever, how did you feel after it? And it just kind of makes you reflect to be like, yeah, you never feel great. And then it's like, So what would happen if you took the time to just not react? Would the outcome be any different? And if your answer is no, then why bother putting yourself through that? And as well, kind of might talk about like worrying and how you're just taken away from your own happiness. And just, it really is something to spark a reflection, is what it is every single day. And every day is different, you know?
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I like that one. I might look into
that.
It's
excellent. Yeah,
I'm going to add that to the list. Looking back over, like, if we were to kind of go back to when you were younger, you were doing the Irish dancing, and if you could kind of like, do you ever look back at, like, you got to go to AFLW, started for Galway, do you ever look back and say like, geez, I never would have thought that would happen? Or do you reflect back, or are you just focusing on getting better and keep moving forward?
Yeah, no, obviously I think it is only natural to reflect from time to time, you know. Definitely I would often look back and just be like, I'd say I'm glad I did such and such to kind of put me in the position to get and have had these opportunities. And I think that every single thing that you do lends to something else in your life. It has a ripple effect, and there's a reason that you come across different situations, or you end up in situations in your life, you know, whether it's to make you stronger for something for the future, or build you, or make resilience, you know. I think that if I hadn't done the dancing, would I be as versatile on the pitch, you know, things like that. I mean, I think they all have a compound effect. And, you know, if you see it in that manner, it's not as much of, some people might say, well, you should have put more time into football and maybe not the dancing when you're younger, and then you'd have more, you know, football in you now. Whereas like, I'm like, maybe the people who dance don't have the same, you know, quickness, sharpness on their feet, you know. There's I would often, but I do look forward, and I try to see, you know, what's to come. But at the end of the day, all we have is now, and there's no point in spending too much time in the past or the future, because you need to be the best version of yourself in this moment. And I feel like if you do that, that will help your future self. But there's no point dwelling on what hasn't happened.
Definitely that's good advice. If there's someone listening, boy or girl, who's younger, that haven't made, you know, there's all this pressure on younger kids to make the team and do all this stuff, what would you say to them about, like, if they want to have, like, they still have county aspirations, potentially haven't made those underage squads, aren't the best player, what would you say to them?
Do what you can today to make yourself better for tomorrow. So control anything that you can control today, and just have a little bit of patience. It will work if it's what you want. Just give it time.
I like that one. That's a good quote. We're going to move on to the sideline 7 before I let you go. I'm just conscious of the time. The same 7 questions for every guest. I'm going to start off with, what is your favourite quote?
Oh goodness, I have a lot. I'm a quote person. I think, and I have always said it, and it's one that will always come up, I think it has to be, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. I've always liked it. And I think if everybody takes that and puts it into practice, the world would be a very, very nice place to be.
Definitely, I agree with that one. Best sporting event you've been to, and that can be as a fan or as a player.
The All-Ireland final in 2019, as a player.
Okay. With the atmosphere and everything.
It's just, and the build up and everything that surrounds that, despite the result, is just, I get such a good feeling from.
Okay, that's good. Biggest setback or challenge so far in your career?
In my career, sporting career?
Yeah, we'll say sporting career.
I suppose probably breaking and dislocating my finger when I was in Australia, because it was definitely a huge opportunity that was in front of me. And I suppose that kind of set me back in terms of the limited time frame that I got to perform at my very best in that given sport while I was there. I don't think that has fully passed yet. But I think that the way I went about overcoming it and coming out stronger the other side of it was definitely a huge benefit, because I grew a lot as a person and became a lot stronger.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm going through injury at the moment, so I'm interested to hear how you dealt with that and with the injury and kind of getting over that and getting back.
I suppose you kind of need to see it as you need to deal with the emotion and let it in of what has happened to you, and that it has taken, I suppose, a little bit of opportunity, but you also need to see what you have to offer to a team environment. And I know it's probably harder for you right now because you're, in your own space, but I was still able to do and provide so much for the team in terms of I still showed up and did everything that I needed to do to put myself in a better position to get back sooner. You will eventually come back if it's what you want. And when you do come back, just make sure that it's in a stronger position than where you left off. And that's all you can do,
Yeah, and it's hard at the moment. It is hard not having that team environment. I'm definitely finding it tougher than before. But yeah, that's a good point where you were saying being there for the team. Yeah, that's a good one. Biggest achievement then off the pitch, kind of the flip side of the challenge.
So from football or a sport?
Oh yeah, sorry. I meant to say biggest achievement on or off the pitch. You can pick
on or off the pitch.
Yeah, sorry.
I just think that's a very difficult question. I suppose becoming a teacher was definitely one, because I feel it has had a ripple effect on so many people, and it has helped me achieve in so many other areas of my life, because I didn't get into teaching straight away. I went the other route. I knew it was what I wanted, so I stayed persistent in what I wanted to achieve, and since I got there I haven't looked back, and it's something that I absolutely love and adore, and I'm really, really happy in that position. But I think it also gave me the work rate and commitment and that drive to just pursue anything that I want, even if I have a setback.
And as we've talked about, I can see that with football, and when you're saying there about going to teaching, that's really probably helped you with football because you're used to having to persevere and keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Are there you were saying you were a teacher in primary school, would the younger kids, do they watch a lot of the Galway games?
Yeah, oh, they're so cute. I used to teach junior infants in Athenry, and they used to come to my matches, a lot of them. There are two in particular, Aoife and Owen, and their brother and sister. Now one will be, the Aoife is older and Owen is younger, but they were even some of my students. Even I taught 4th class in Kildare, and at that All-Ireland final I seen students that I had in my first teaching job at the match afterwards. Yeah, it was phenomenal. In the crowd of 56,000, I still was able to see them afterwards. It's mad. But yeah, they would consistently come to the matches. It's great.
Oh, that's so lovely. Yeah, they have probably little posters or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cute. Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Do what makes you happy, and as long as you're happy and you're not hurting anyone in the process, then continue doing it.
I like that one. Dream dinner guest and why?
I actually answered this question of recent, but it was 3 guests.
Well, you can pick a few. I'm not strict with it, don't worry. Pick as many as you want.
All right. John Wooden, I don't know if you know about him, the basketball
big
coach.
Fan of John.
I suppose it kind of goes without saying, just he's a world of knowledge, and I feel if you could sit down and talk to him and just harp out. I know I've read his book, but it would be great to sit down and have a chat with him. As well, Michael Jordan, I think would be another one, phenomenal person that I would love to sit down and talk to and pick his brain. And then I suppose a bit more fangirly would be James Smith. I don't know if you'd be aware of him. He's a PT, but he is like an online coach. He's actually technically Irish, but grew up in England, and he's currently living in Sydney. But just what he has done and achieved in the last number of years in such a short space of time, and become so successful as a person. He's kind of not too much older than me either, that I feel like as well he's a cool guy.
Yeah, that's good. I have to look him up. Out of interest, what did you think of The Last Dance? Did you watch that on Netflix?
Yeah, I did actually. I think every single person did, because we were in lockdown. I thought it was class. Really, really, really good. I never played basketball bar at school level, not even at school level. break time level is what I mean.
Okay.
And I was there over at my neighbour's house just trying to be shooting hoops and pretending we were on The Last Dance after it. You think you just get so immersed in it.
Yeah, you think you're Michael Jordan afterwards.
Oh yeah, trying to jump up and do slam dunk, never gonna happen. A girl can dream.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. The Last Dance definitely has sparked a couple of new basketball fans. Did you have like a particular takeaway from the series? Because I found it was a really interesting insight into him as a person and the sort of effects of being who he was. And I mean, like, because he was so driven, there were consequences to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose it kind of just reminded me, well, I always say every part of your life is about balance, whether it's your food, sleep, how hard you work, how hard you do spend time with friends, time with on the pitch, training. I think everything is about balance, and it's important never to let go of that. And whilst yes, if you want to go hell for leather at something, you have to know that it's going to come at a cost and be ready for that. And if you're able to accept that, then go for it and stay going for it. But if it's not something you're ready to live with, then don't do it.
Yeah, because that part where he gets quite emotional. I think he cries and then calls break. I think that was really early on in the series, but you don't think of that when, you know what I mean, when you think of Michael Jordan, you don't think of him, having these sort of, you don't nearly think of him as a person, you know what I mean, in that sense. I know that sounds stupid, but you don't think of the consequences of him getting 6 rings and being the GOAT and all this stuff. Like, there is, I always think there's a consequence to winning, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just to be aware of what comes with it. And I mean, obviously he's on a whole other level, but you can put it all into perspective, and everything is very relatable if you want to bring it back to your life situation. But it was a great series, and I think it was an important one for people to see, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend watching it. Final question: if your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
Ooh. The comeback is greater than the setback.
Okay, I like that one. What are you coming back from, out of interest?
I suppose, we haven't finished our job with Galway yet. That's to be done. As well, I probably see myself showing what I am capable of in the AFLW scene at some point. So
okay, yeah,
I suppose there's those things to look out for. So in terms of my sporting life, that's the way I would write that chapter at the minute. Okay,
yeah, that's a good one. So I have to keep up with your story. Look, Mairead, thank you so much for coming on. I've thoroughly enjoyed that, and just want to wish you the best of luck with everything, with the teaching, with football, and with AFLW. And thank you so much for your time again.
Thanks, Orla. We'll talk to you soon.
A massive thank you to Mairead for coming on today. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I definitely took a lot away from it, particularly from the free taking point of view. Be sure to go follow her over on Instagram at WalkingWithShow for more. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you did enjoy the episode, be sure to leave a rating and a review. If you're interested in starting up your own podcast, be sure to get in touch with the Primal Productions team over on Instagram at PrimalPro.